Dead Snow is a movie about two of the most downright horrific and disturbing things a person could ever possibly think of: Germans and Norwegians. Anyway, fascist flesh-eating zombies are two things that go hand in hand really, on account of them both being, not very good. And with both of them tending to be brain-dead idiots dealing with their issues in literally the worst possible ways, it only makes sense for them to often get paired together. And that's exactly what the director of Dead Snow, Tommy Wirkola, thought. Tommy also being the director behind the recent Silent Night movie, starring Mr. Stranger Things from that show about casual child endangerment and blowing cigarette smoke into your children's faces. Tommy thought, why not take two of the most evil things that mankind has ever conjured up in their funny looking meat brains and let's put them together. The incredibly original idea of Nazis and zombies. The movie begins with the absolutely abhorrent sight of a woman being chased through the Norwegian snowy wilderness before being taken to the ground and torn to pieces like a pit bull roaming free at the local daycare, in a scene that we absolutely do not condone, because here at Big Will, we like women. Also here at Big Will, we're a fan of financially supporting the channel, so I can do this for you every week. So thanks to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring today's video. Raid's the hottest PvP and PvE adventure for me, whether I'm on the go, got a minute or two to spare while a video exports, or when I'm being downright criminally British and waiting for the kettle to boil. Let's take a look at their Hydra. The Head of Suffering, much like my videos, is all about making you suffer. Among a ton of other things, it's got a special new effect called Pain Link, which lets the head share some of the damage it takes with you. If you hurt it too much, you're going to suffer, and if you're not careful, this can end your team quickly. The Head of Wrath gets angry, it weakens and taunts your team, but the real pain comes once you beat it up a bit. After you hit it 15 times, the Head of Wrath gives itself a new Vengeance buff, which triples its attack power until the end of its next turn. It deals big damage, so you need to be careful about letting it get vengeance, or your team is gonna die. Grab a free legendary champion, Sun Wukong, Raid's take on the mischievous Monkey King, coming as a free legendary champion. All you've got to do is log into Raid on 7 different days between August the 22nd and October the 23rd to get your hands on this champion. Raid's increasing its roster of champions with a brand new rarity, Mythical. Mythical champions have a special new mechanic called Metamorph that allows them to change between two different forms. Each form has a different type, so one could be a damage-dealing knight and the other could be a flaming angel of healing. New players, you have a chance to get one of the best epic champions, Stag Knight, as well as a skin for him designed by JonTron himself, so just use the promo code JTSKIN before October 7th and scan the QR code right here and you'll get a free starter pack with this in-game loot, so hit the link in the description to get started. We're then introduced to a handful of friends. In one car, Vegard, Erland, Roy and Martin, and in the other car, Martin's girlfriend Hannah, as well as Chris and Liv. They're driving out to a remote cabin in the woods to meet up with Vegard's girlfriend Sarah, who unfortunately decided to also double as doggy kibble as she preferred to hike through the mountains. A group of characters who I guess pass the basic requirements to even be called characters, as they're incredibly two-dimensional, to the point that Roy's most defining characteristic is that he has a penis, while Erland is the cliché, slightly overweight comedic relief character who loves horror movies. Wait, why am I in this movie? After arriving at the cabin and seeing no sign of Sarah, Martin engages in the incredibly romantic activity of pretending to suffocate his claustrophobic girlfriend to death before Liv spots someone outside in the tree line while on her way back from the outhouse. A man with magical superpowers who has the ability to instantly appear behind Roy before asking them for some coffee, telling them that their coffee sucks, and then helping himself to one of their beers like the alpha male that he is. Because that's all it takes. Want to be the top dog alpha? Be incredibly rude and make everyone hate you. He begins telling them a story about the historical importance of this location, as I guess that's just what you do after inviting yourself into someone else's property and non-consensually consuming their beverages. It's called manners. He tells them that during World War II, the sequel to the original World War, but this time with a 2 at the end, that the location held strategic importance to the Germans after they decided to occupy Norway by looking at it and going, mine now. Colonel Herzog and his men brutalized the local residents in horrific and unforgivable ways, and once they realized that they were going to need to retreat from the area, on their way out, they decided that they were going to steal all of the valuables from the town's occupants. But with the occupants not being particularly fond of these kinda smelly guys, this time they fought back, killing many of them, forcing Herzog and a group of his men to retreat into the mountains with his gold, where he and the rest of his troops presumably froze to death for being a little pussy boy. Just as the man is about to leave, Roy proceeds to make fun of his story before the incredibly charismatic and well-mannered guest immediately grabs him by the throat and holds him up against the wall because he really loves the way he looks from this angle. After almost kissing Roy's sweet succulent lips, the man who came to their cabin, asked for a coffee, called their coffee crap and assaulted one of them, is then attacked and killed by something in the night. And by something, I mean someone who's come to tell him how bad his coffee is. The next morning, concerned about his girlfriend's well-being not being so well, Vegard heads off on his snowmobile to see if he can find where Sarah has gotten to. And after a while of driving, while eating half a sandwich that I guess he just forgot he was making, he spots the coffee connoisseur's tent and looks inside to see that he really didn't like the coffee. So much in fact, that he had to get it out of his own insides. And back at the cabin, Hannah somehow mistakes her own thumb for a piece of carrot and almost slices it off. I can see how you'd do that. And her boyfriend, being a medical student, almost passes out at the sign of a slight injury, like some kind of inefficient narcoleptic doctor. That's like being terrified of your own reflection and being a professional mirror cleaner. Oh god, it's me. Yuck. Anyway, now that that terrifying experience is over, Erland reaches down into a hatch in the floor to retrieve a beer, but ends up coming across a not-so-hidden box of Nazi treasure, aka the things they stole from literally everyone else and now pretend that they own. After rummaging through a box of treasure that clearly doesn't belong to them, like the Nazis, Hannah secretly slides a coin into Martin's pocket because theft is fun, and Erland accidentally drops one of the coins on the ground as he leaves to use the outhouse, which rather confusingly is almost immediately followed up by Chris walking in as he's wiping his bum and putting his dirty unwashed poo-poo fingers in her mouth because either this woman has no sense of taste or smell, or severe issues. And while they're busy not abiding to hygiene standards, while checking if Chris's internal organs are all where they should be, someone in desperate need of a good skincare routine picks up the coin off the floor because free money is free money, even if you do find it right next to people having really weird smelly poo sex. Once they're done, Erland immediately leaves like the gentleman that he is, not even repaying her the favour and walking in while she's wiping her butt, for Chris to then notice that someone is watching her from outside, as everyone in this area are surprisingly interested in other people's feces. Someone who's so desperate for the toilet and so irate they were using the outhouse for non-outhouse related things that they pull her through the bottom of the latrine to cover her in even more of Erland's bodily fluids that she didn't already have on her. After climbing back out, she screams for help, alerting all of her friends to her really strange poop fetish before she's tackled to the floor by a surprised Norwegian rugby player, right as Hannah opens the door to investigate. After not seeing any sign of Chris, but strangely being able to smell her, Hannah hands Martin a shotgun hanging above the door and sends him outside to shoot her for the heinous crime of being a woman. After being like the average Reddit mod and failing to find the woman, they come back without Chris, but they have found Sarah's backpack, meaning that something strange is up. But before they have any real time to contemplate what to do next, Hannah looks out of the window to see someone holding Chris's decapitated head. Arms start reaching through the windows trying to grab at everyone inside, before they realise that they're surrounded by a group of undead zombies. Not particularly the biggest fan of Nazis, Martin shoots one as they start to break in, and Hannah chops the hand off another for failing their secret high-five greeting. They pick up the hand to notice a ring with an engraved swastika on it, meaning that they're either surrounded by a group of incredibly angry Buddhists, or the story that Sigma male old man told was indeed true. And the Nazis, loving to get all touchy-feely with other men but hating to admit it, grab Erland and tear open his head, while he rather ironically wears a Peter Jackson Brain Dead t-shirt, a movie that Peter Jackson made before taking a bunch of shrooms in the woods and obsessing about little people and their shiny polished rings. Earlier in the day, Vegard had fallen through the Nazis' precariously placed glory hole and was knocked unconscious as he fell into the cave. The next morning he wakes up after his non-consensual spelunking session and simply punches himself free because he's just that badass. Using fuel from his snowmobile and his vast experience with setting things on fire, he creates himself a makeshift torch to explore the cave more because Sarah can wait. There's cool rocks to look at in here. Once he makes it back inside, he ends up coming across a stockpile of World War II weaponry and a giant Nazi flag, clearly compensating for something that they're quite insecure about. After a bit more searching, he ends up finding Sarah's severed head, which unfortunately isn't the type of head he was hoping to get on this trip. He's then thrown out of the cave by a zombie for trespassing, and not being a fan of, well, anyone who isn't horribly inbred with bad political takes, the zombie tackles him to the floor before Vegard manages to bite a chunk out of his face and beat him with his own helmet. He takes his knife and throws it into the eye of another zombie before kicking him into a tree to be impaled by its branches, because Norwegian trees are simply built different. The one he beat with the helmet, but not hard enough, then tackles him over a cliff ledge, but Vegard manages to cling on for his life by using the intestines of the impaled zombie to just kinda hang out. He's then given the forbidden hickey by a zombie still holding on before headbutting him off, as that's the closest thing that the zombies had to a cuddle in about 70 years, and ew, gross old people. Back at the cabin, they've all collectively decided that Martin and Roy will attempt to lure the zombies away, while Hannah and Liv make a run for it. And by collectively decided, I mean they have absolutely no choice, like any good democracy. A plan which doesn't exactly go to plan, as almost immediately, Hannah and Liv split up, like some kind of strange Norwegian episode of Scooby-Doo, with a Nazi thematic overtone. Except at the end of this episode, they don't remove the mask to find some disgruntled person, and it's just Hitler. I hate when that happens. Hannah manages to kill one of them, while Liv manages to not kill one of them. She's knocked unconscious and wakes up to the sight of a couple of dudes tearing up her guts, and not in the fun way. So with her last bit of strength, despite it not being the fun way, still manages to go out with a bang after detonating one of their grenades as they weren't looking. We then see the big bad Colonel Herzog, looking like he tongues Rottweilers in his spare time, but this time it went wrong, as he orders even more of his apparently well-trained and efficient troops to kill this group of literal random people. After punching one of them in the face, because screw that face in particular, Hannah is spotted hiding in a tree after culling the local wildlife population, as both of the zombies look up at her like, "What did that bird ever do to you?" Being nature enthusiasts, enraged, they start climbing up the tree after her, but Hannah uses their love of nature against them and jams a stick into one of their skulls. Cornered at the edge of a cliff with nowhere to go, she has a little tantrum about it and cracks the ice, causing both her and the zombie to plummet to the ground below because she loves gravity. Roy and Martin, somehow being back at the cabin despite running away from it earlier, think that it's a bit too chilly in here and decide to warm things up by burning it to the ground. Can't argue with that logic. Retreating from their makeshift sauna that's starting to get out of hand, they run to a nearby shack to find it full of equipment that they can use to start their own landscaping company and offer the Nazis a really good discount code in hopes of them leaving them alone. Back with Vegard, he's climbed back up the intestine rope like the average Cruelty Squad player, and sews his own neck back together with fishing wire, because that's the average Scandinavian's idea of a good time. Well, you know, apart from pillaging the Christians. And Hannah, being a Norwegian, has defied the laws of physics, and somehow survived her plummet from the cliff face above, and decides to practice her inner football hooligan skills on the zombie trapped in the snow. The aspiring landscapers, armed with a chainsaw and hammer, like some really weird version of the Soviet Union or something, relieve many zombies of their various appendages to help them on their weight loss journeys, before Vegard appears with one of their machine guns mounted on the front of his snowmobile that he uses to take them out. But just like those terrible Big Will videos, they just keep appearing no matter what he does. Giving in and realizing that it's probably better that he just subscribes and likes all of his videos, he runs one over and places another beneath the blades before revving the engine like one of those annoying pricks outside of my house at 3 AM with their awful cars they used to pick up underage girls. Unfortunately, just like the people revving their awful car engine outside, Vegard's fun must come to an end. Except he isn't arrested and put on some kind of list, he's picked up from behind and quite literally torn limb from limb. Martin and Roy deal with the leftover zombies with ease, as this army of Nazi zombie soldiers are absolutely obliterated by just some guys. When suddenly, Martin accidentally lodges an axe into his girlfriend's neck, as Hannah thought that it would be a great idea to gently caress him from behind as he's in the middle of giving a Nazi zombie a short back and side with a skin fade. After the slightly unfortunate event of killing his girlfriend, Herzog appears before Martin kills multiple of the zombies with the shotgun, before being attacked and bitten by one of them. Thinking that it's going to cause him to turn into a zombie with very questionable political takes, looking up to his idol Ash Williams and that dude from 127 Hours, he cuts his own arm off with the chainsaw before cauterizing the wound. Then he's bitten in the knob. And just as they're about to kill Herzog, so Martin can relieve himself of his third arm, he suddenly raises the entire army from the ground. They did not see that coming.
Stop it. Get some help.
And neither did Roy, as he's hit over the head with a hammer while trying to run, before accidentally disemboweling himself on a tree, because the Ents have revolted. Watching as Herzog takes a piece of gold from Roy's pocket, Martin realizes what they're after, and runs back to the now slightly smaller cabin and quickly digs up the box. Leaving it there for the zombies, he flees and heads back down to his car, thinking that they finally got what they came for. But as he pulls the car keys out to start the engine, suddenly a coin lands on the floor. A coin that he didn't even realize he had. And as soon as he picks it up, the movie comes to an end with Herzog punching through the window, with Hannah accidentally killing Martin just as he accidentally killed her. That is if you don't watch the second movie. So before this video comes to an end, I'd like to just give a massive shout out to all of the YouTube members and patrons. The people who every month, despite YouTube not being very fond of the type of content I make, continue to support the channel and help it keep going. If you're interested in becoming a YouTube member or a patron yourself, not only are you just being a great support, but you get access to a few little bonuses like the private Discord server, where you can then see uncensored versions of all of my videos going forward. And starting off with this week's new YouTube member signups, a massive thank you to Wahlberger Keith, Morrigan, Admiral Stanley, RL Spooky, Riley Hutchings, Hazy, Rohan Nayak, Duke Dulce, Janelli Franco, Augustus, Stormlocker, Samuel Andre Vervik, Ed, Rebecca Rodriguez, David, Angeliska, Hayden Parsons, X2 Ruby 69, JS Mills, Kurmakova Barbora, Ariana, Sylvan, Michael Allison, Will Neot, Ozzy Samarin, Grug TF2, CR, Lalat Boya, and Dreamscape 666. And heading over to this week's new Patreon signups, a massive thank you to Matthew Williams, Salt, Cuppycake, Linus Dyer, Walnut, Lee Egg, James Ware, Joshua Jeff, Lucas, Curly Chunk, Sagara, Bungie Boos, Marcus Aris Anderson, Bobby Schmidt, Jalen Austin, Flagman, Jordan Rogers, Bear9952, Z Greaves, Felix Linbin, Lanil, Awoken Queen, Citrus Sugar, Nubu Y012, JJ, and Jacob Hennis. So once again, a massive shout out to all of the YouTube members and patrons, and a big thank you to everyone else for watching.